Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into episode 2 of season 3 of In the Clutch. I'm Teddy Ball alongside Jonathan Michel, Dalton, Carmien, and Wesley Stombaugh over here on the call. And we're going to be going over a little bit of week 2 and a lot of week 3 going into the third week of the IHSA football season. We're excited to finally talk about football again. We got last episode out that was smooth, and now we got a few more people to talk with us today. A little bit more of a conversation, so I'm excited.
Woof woof, the dogs are in the house, baby. We got 4 of us this week, but including Dalton and Wesley's debut on the In the Clutch podcast. But no, I mean, week 2, always fun. You get to see teams for a second time, whether maybe someone had a big loss, looking to redeem themselves in week 2, maybe looking to keep it going or whatever and stuff. And, you just get to see more. Obviously, way too early to draw any final conclusions yet, but you get to see, some more great games. And, I mean, how about us starting with our WMBD games of the week? I don't know if we've ever had 2 games in a row to start the season, honestly, maybe at any point of any season, where they've been one-possession games late in the fourth and have offered so much Laking dramatic. So, I mean, we've seen 2 great games, and it has been a blast to the start of the season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than excited to be a part of the In the Clutch podcast this year, so thank you guys for inviting me on. I'll be here this week and hopefully a lot more times in the future, but I'm even more excited that we got football back, boys. We got high school, we got college, and then now all the NFL season, it's underway. Everything is in full swing. And furthermore, we have had 2 really, really entertaining weeks of IHSA football and hopefully more in the future.
We really have gotten lucky with the games we picked. You never really know. For the small town throwdowns, for example, we thought we picked some really good ones. They have been good teams, but it's just you never exactly know how it's going to match up. We have gotten lucky with the 2 prime CSM games of the week that we've picked, and just
those small town games will get close though.
They will get close.
They will.
Especially
we got a good one coming this week.
Got a good one coming this week. So Normal U High and Bloomington, they had a classic. It's another CSM classic. We don't want to overuse that term, but we've kind of just gotten used to them at this point. It seems like we bring them every week. So Bloomington, defeats Normal U High 41-38, and a great game all throughout, back and forth. A lot of penalties on U High's side, but they still kept it close. Overall, just a great game, great week of football.
Yeah, I'll defer to Wesley. Obviously, Wesley's a Bloomington High School student, so he probably offers some good insight. Obviously, he was with us there at the game. Wesley, what did you think?
It was great to have a couple of great games to start the season, and it's cool to see some of the surprises because, I wrote our football preview for Bloomington, and at the game yesterday, I'm kind of like, well, there's a couple guys I maybe should have talked about a little more. It's always fun early in the season to see who are the guys maybe who were overlooked. So.
Well, they probably read your preview and said that, hey, I'm gonna play my butt off. So next time, I will be included in the preview.
That's the beauty of high school football, right? You got these rosters, you got these guys that play both offense and defense. You got underclassmen, you got a bunch of seniors. You really don't know which one of your guys is going to burst onto the scene. It's really a roll of a dice, and I would imagine Bloomington is pretty happy with the production that they've gotten out of some of those guys that maybe weren't mentioned in Wesley's write-up about Bloomington's season before season started.
Well, I'm sure you mentioned Rob Lanier at least. He was the hero of Friday's game for sure.
Knew about his running ability, and he had those 2 rushing touchdowns, but he also had an interception, and that was something I did not see coming from him.
Yeah, he had the long touchdown run, which, by the way, how about big play Bloomington? I mean, my word, they had the kick return for a touchdown, they had 2 or 3 long runs and everything. So, I mean, that was the reason they won that game, back and forth battle. But again, Lanier, the long touchdown run, had the interception with about, I think maybe a minute, 2 or 3 minutes, something like that, left in the game. And then not only that, U-High goes down, in case you didn't watch the game, U-High goes down the field. They're down 41-30, I think in the span of 40 seconds without using their one timeout left. They didn't use that timeout the entire way. Alec Whelan did a fantastic job getting his guys down the field, got a touchdown. They converted the 2-point, and it's 41-38, and we're like, oh boy, if U-High recovers this kick, they still had a timeout. One of the best quarterbacks in the area still left. So, for a brief moment, it looked like maybe that pick by Lanier was the game-winning play. It turned out to be his onside kick recovery that he recovered. That ended up being the one that sealed it for Bloomington.
I don't necessarily want to say anticlimactic because it was a great game all throughout, but once that onside kick was recovered, you could kind of feel the sigh of relief on the Bloomington side, and it's obviously a little upsetting for the U-High fans, but overall, they fought that whole way, like you said, 40 seconds left, got back in the game just like that. It was close all throughout, even when it was a 10-point game. Kept seeming like Bloomington was staying ahead, and Normal was just right on their tails. But overall, that was a great week 2 matchup.
Yeah, no, it was a great game, and U-High is going to be a phenomenal team. It's a team that went at I think a 3-win improvement last season, and they're only going to get better this year. They still had some guys that were banged up that didn't play, some key guys. So once you get some of those guys back in, I mean this sky's the limit for U-High. I really do think. That they have some good things coming their way, but I also got to give major props to Bloomington. They went on the road week 1, beat a playoff team last year in Danville, 41-13, and they come in and then they beat normal U-High, put up 41 points again. So the offense is clicking. AJ Codron had a great game. Really just great. Didn't throw any picks. I don't even know. I can't even remember. I'll have to watch the film. I don't even know if he went down for a sack the entire game. He did a nice job evading in the pocket and everything. Offensive line played great. And their defense also, again, it's stuff going up against normal U-High. You are going to give up some points against the Pioneers. That's just how it's going to go. But, I mean, they had playmakers. I said this on the broadcast, at all 3 levels of their defense. They had Justin Robinson, David Williams on the D-line. They had Mikey Kimmel, Kenner Byatt, linebacker. Then they had Kenyatta Gardner and Juan Rivera making some nice plays in the secondary as well. So, I mean, they had at least 2 guys at all 3 levels that had really good, impressive games on Friday. So, Bloomington is going to be a pretty scary team, and I wouldn't be surprised if we're sitting here in Week 7, Week 8, maybe Week 9, and they still have a chance to win the Big 12.
We give a lot of credit to Rob Lanier, and rightfully so, but I think we should also shout out the offensive line there, because when I talked to Coach Niall McGay, he really emphasized line play and talked about how battles are won and lost in the trenches. So just big, and Bloomington's got a lot of big guys on that offensive line, and Caden Walls and Dave Williams, so that definitely played a really big part in the run game.
Yeah, those are two really big fellas right there. You'd love to have in the O-line for sure.
And back to AJ Codron just for a second. I watched him play just a few times last year, and just in the little bit that I watched of Friday's game against U-High, there are drastic improvements in his game at quarterback. Overall, and just his way that he doesn't panic, and a lot of that is thanks, like Wesley said, to the also improved O-line of the Purple Raiders, that just his ability to make the right choice when he has all these green, gold, white jerseys coming at him. Mm-hmm. Really, really big improvements from Codron, and I would be ecstatic if I was on that team. Just seeing his growth and seeing his leadership, I think that's going to carry it to next week and then hopefully into the playoffs for Bloomington.
It truly was a great display by both quarterbacks. Like I mentioned this to John during the halftime segment, just their ability to escape the pocket was extremely impressive, both of them. And that's one of the most, especially at the high school level, how beneficial that can be, because a lot of quarterbacks growing up are taught to stay in the pocket and make those throws, but it's usually those guys at the next level that are able to extend plays and be able to make a play, like I said, can keep going, and that's the guys that really are valuable. And at the next level, at the high school level, at any level, those guys are extremely valuable. But moving ahead, not to cut this off any earlier, moving ahead to the rest of week 2. A couple of things to talk about here. A couple of things I wrote down. Metamora beating LaSalle Peru 22-14. That was a big one for Metamora to go to 2-0, to take not necessarily a lead. I'm not sure who is actually at the top of the Mid-Illini at the moment. So it's tied pretty much. But,
so like a three-way tie between three-way tie, between Metamora, Dunlap, and East Peoria, just like we all predicted.
That was something we talked about last week. We weren't expecting, maybe
by the way, I said it was sarcasm, by the way. Obviously no one ever knows what you could. I mean, there's been a lot of things with the Mid-Illini that we probably couldn't have predicted. But, hey, Metamora, Dunlap, East Peoria have earned it. But back to what you were saying, Teddy.
Like we said last week, Washington 0-2, Morton 0-2, and these other teams are taking advantage of that. They haven't played them yet, obviously, but East Peoria, we talked about, they're making a name for themselves this year. They're playing with swagger out there. That's something that East Peoria typically hasn't had in the past, and this is a year for East Peoria that could be really exciting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I said it last week. Again, I want to say that, hey, if I was right, because obviously I said it last week that they could go 4-0. Obviously, they're only halfway there. But, obviously, the win over Lanphier, obviously, I, kind of thought that was going to be coming. But what was more impressive is the fact of how they won. They didn't just, beat them, by a score or two. They shut them out 44-0. I mean, that was, East Peoria isn't really used to dominating wins like that. They've had some wins in the last couple years, obviously, some more than what they've had in, maybe in the late 2010s, early 2020s. But I mean, that win like that shows that, hey, we don't we not only can we beat teams, we can lay down a butt whooping. So, I mean, major props to East Peoria, like you said, big win for Metamora. Obviously, Sterling, LaSalle, Peru, two pretty solid teams. Obviously maybe not as strong as maybe say Washington's two teams that they face like Canelan and Kankakee, but again, still two good teams nonetheless. And, Dunlap as well. I mean, 41-31 over Rock Island. Or whatever. So, obviously it wasn't quite the 48-0 we saw in week 1, but Dunlap is 2-0. I'm not sure if Galesburg or Rock Island are going to be, top ranked teams in the state by any means or whatever, but wins are wins or whatever. So I think the biggest key for Dunlap especially is being able to take something away from this week 3 game against Pekin. Again, nothing against Galesburg or Rock Island. Obviously you learn something new each game, but after Pekin, Dunlap has games against Limestone, East Peoria, and Canton, all of which they're going to be probably heavily favored to win. You can't get complacent in those games after those things. Say, hey, oh, we won it by big margins. We're fine going into week 7 against Washington, which is going to be a big game. They have got to execute and really just kind of use those games, not as practice, but they got to make sure that they're constantly improving. Before that, they face Washington, Metamora, and Morton over the last 3 weeks of the season. So I know it kind of went off topic there, but yeah, that's some Mid-Illini thoughts, I guess.
I really like what you said about not getting complacent because, I mean, obviously every team right now is either 0-2, 1-1, or 2-0. For these 2-0 teams, Dunlap, Metamora, East Peoria, and so on, it is really crucial to not get complacent because, you got those first week jitters out. You're 2-0. You're riding high, and especially for a team like Dunlap that is looking ahead, 1, 2, 3 weeks, these are all games that they can win. They actually have to go out and win them. You do have to play the games. But
yes.
You are feeling good. You should be feeling good because you look up, you're 2-0, and you only need, 5 wins it is to get into the playoffs, more or less. So don't get complacent because that's how you end up losing one of those games that you are heavily favored to win, and that can snowball.
Wesley, you got anything about Mid-Illini?
I don't think so. Maybe a little off topic, but I just have to say that John said about Dunlap, a win's a win. I've had to say that a lot lately as a Bears fan after week 1. So,
hey, you know what? I've been in a really good mood, the last couple, days or so, and part of that is because, over the last couple of years, there's not been many weeks where we have had, a absolute classic of a Friday night game that we broadcasted. Illinois wins on Saturday, Chicago Bears win on Sunday, and my fantasy team wins as well. I mean, I like to call those unicorn weeks because they don't happen very often. Like the chances of those are not very much. All those things happen this week. So, there's some weeks where I'm like, man, football is, kind of a pain. This week, I love it. Football's the best. I love it, and I'm going to love it every week. Don't get me wrong, but extending that good feeling for Friday night into the rest of the weekend. And Illini win. Obviously, I know I was there with Dalton.
Brother.
Wesley was there as well. So that was a fun game to be at for sure. And big win. I mean, we want to talk about how it relates to the high school level. Big win for recruiting in state, especially. Obviously, I know he wasn't at the game, but you talk about a guy, for example, like Max Sutter from Dunlap, obviously. 4 or 5 star recruit, one of the best, not just in the state, but one of the best in the country and everything, and Illinois wins in front of a sold out crowd against a ranked opponent. It shows that, hey, maybe we're not Alabama or Oregon or anything like that, but we can, win against teams like this. So, for the top talent in the area, I know that not everyone has an offer from Illinois, but, I think, it's a statement win. It could, have its effects, I think, at the high school level for sure.
You had me with everything.
Go ahead, Wesley.
Talked about the sold out crowd, and I think that could have a big part of it too. Just the atmosphere there was great, and I think part of the appeal of some of the SEC schools like Alabama or Tennessee, it's the quality of the program, but also just the atmosphere there of 100,000 riled up fans, and so I think it's also good for the recruiting for them to see that they can pack Memorial Stadium and have a good atmosphere there too.
Yeah, like I was saying, like I was thinking, what you said about like all 4 levels, like everything besides fantasy football, I went 0 for 3 this week. But other than that, like it's just it was a great week of football all around. I'm hoping for that to continue. One thing I do want to say, going back a little bit, you said not to be complacent at any level really, and one example of that, Notre Dame and Northern Illinois. They overlooked them.
Woof, baby.
Maybe the same could be said about Cincinnati in the NFL level when they overlooked the Patriots, looking at the Chiefs the next week and then they lost. So you don't want to overlook those games because every game is crucial. And even if you do overlook it, say you do lose that game, if you're complacent with that, you lose one. Like you're losing your momentum, especially down a stretch that's so important. Mm-hmm. You're losing your momentum going into a playoff stretch, something like that. That's something that can like really really kick you in the butt into a playoff run. So every game is important, especially down the stretch.
Those MAC teams, man, they will come up and they will get you in any
They're getting
sport
better
at any time. They are terrifying, those MAC teams, and I makes me wonder if Northern Illinois is going to sneak their way into the top 25. We'll see about
I don't know if Jordan Lynch is walking through those doors again. Real ones remember, but I don't know. We'll see.
You've got nothing to lose. You've got everything to gain. So those MAC teams, when they're playing a big time opponent, they know how to step up. That's for sure.
Hey, shout out! Speaking of the Illinois Huskies, I want to double check. I want to make sure. Real quick, I want to confirm I'm getting the right guy. But shout out to former Peoria Notre Dame kicker and punter Tom Foley. He is actually on the Northern Illinois Huskies. So P&D Irish football fans, Tom Foley was part of one of the biggest storylines in all of college football this past week. So
Irish on Irish crime.
Yeah, Irish on Irish crime. I didn't even think about that.
Some Central Illinois representation there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I want to talk about maybe not as much week 2, going into week 3. What are some? Stay on week 2.
Yeah, we had some other games. We had some other good games to go through.
I was going to ask you guys, what are the surprises from you guys from week 2? You guys didn't have any surprises that stuck out to you?
I can take
Go ahead. Yeah.
My surprise is El Paso Gridley. Titans fans look away, but EPG they dropped their game to KC Westfield, 14-28. Was final score, and EPG had that really impressive Week 1 victory over Braidwood Reed Custer. That game was 23-6. Just a little bit surprised that the El Paso Gridley offense came to a bit of a standstill in a winnable game. But with that being said, KC Westfield is no pushover.
Yeah, they're a good team. KC Westfield is a good team.
Athletes. If you don't believe me, look up their softball team. But KC Westfield's good. It's only week 2. It's not time to hit the panic button yet, El Paso Gridley fans. And the Titans, they have a really good opportunity to bounce back in week 3 with a home Heart of Central Illinois large conference game against Colfax Ridgeview. And I believe the Titans are going to get it done. I mean, it's a tough loss, but they are 1-1. Non-con is in the rearview mirror. They got to take on their conference that always seems to be tough, but a lot of people pick the Titans to win the conference or at least finish in the top 3. And those expectations are still a reality in my eyes for the Titans, but just a little bit surprised at the lack of offense.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously El Paso really lost some, big pieces on offense. Running back Skylar Clover graduated. Quarterback, obviously Cameron Schumacher was, just ridiculous for them for the past couple of years. And obviously, you're going to, obviously offense isn't going to just, completely just, go crazy after you lose those guys. They still have obviously some very good pieces. I know Jeremy Yass had a good game for EPG. I scored, I think, one of their touchdowns or whatever. So again, but on EPG, on the topic of them, in that Heart of Central Illinois, and going into, what I was going to say, my surprise for the week, it's going to be super competitive, and it really is anyone's race. I mean, and I truly mean that because I think I could see 6 different teams out of the 8, maybe even 7 out of the 8 teams of that conference winning it all. And my surprise for this past week was, I know this is kind of, pushing the edges of our coverage area a little bit. Technically, Tri-Valley is in our coverage area and everything. They lost to Leroy 41-14. And obviously, I know Leroy is a team that's gotten, some major improvement lately. Obviously, playoff run last year for the Panthers. But, I mean, Tri-Valley just usually doesn't lose games like that. They're a team that has made it to the state title game, a couple of the last few years and everything. And, obviously Heart of Illinois has always been a good conference, but it's always been Tri-Valley, at least for the last few years at the top. That loss to Leroy kind of shows that maybe it's someone else's turn. You don't know. I mean, Vikings only beat Peru St. Bede, who, by the way, St. Bede's a decent team. They only beat them 22-16. So, I think that, maybe teams like Eureka, like DMAC, like El Paso Gridley, obviously you got the newcomers, Shelbyville and Clinton, the new kids on the block, they're both 2-0. So, they're going to, be coming in hot, So, yeah, you look up and down that conference, Ridgeview, Lexington, you never know with them. They could be pretty solid as well. So, yeah, you got 4 teams that are 2-0. Obviously, DMAC and Eureka play each other this week, so that's going to be a phenomenal game over in DMAC. But, my takeaway was that, hey, the HOCI large, wide open.
Most definitely, that DMAC and Eureka game is circled on. I have it here. I was talking about week 2, but I have DMAC shutting out Westland, 36-0, and then ahead of the Eureka match. Like, that was a statement. Like, they're playing a conference opponent, and like you said, a wide open conference. That's going to be a game to watch this week. So I'm excited to see how that turns out. But overall, like you said, wide open conference, and keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we got on our computer. We got Wesley here right now. I wanted to see what Wesley had any big surprises from this past week too.
I had Peoria High over P&D 46-40. I thought that game might be a little bit more lopsided than it was. No disrespect to P&D, just Peoria High's a bigger school, and that bigger school and also just bigger guys. I know they're really big and physical. And we saw P&D kind of struggle against Normal West's run game in week 1. So I would have expected Peoria High to kind of win more lopsided affair because of dominating in physicality, and they did put up 46. So I assume the run game was perfectly fine. It was more on the defense, but.
Yeah, well, I remember checking that score at halftime of our game. It was 40-20 Peoria High. And, I was thinking, well, okay, it's not completely out of reach yet, but Lions are in control. P&D tied that game up 40-40 with a couple minutes left in the fourth quarter before, I think, Datarion Pollard from Peoria High, who, by the way, had a phenomenal game, had 4 touchdowns, I think about 120, 130 yards on Friday. So, major props to him. He's kind of the new guy for, Peoria High. Obviously, 2 years ago, Teddy, you may remember Malachi Washington. Year before that, you look at Eddie Clark and, Deatrick Pollard, Datarion's older brother, which, obviously not that old, but, I know you guys are, a little bit newer to the high school sports team. Makes me feel a little bit old. But obviously, we passed the torch from Washington to Ross. Now you got Datarion Pollard. Also, you got Kendall Netters, too. Dunlap transfer is really fast, really good. So you do have that second option, which Peoria High, always likes to have as well. So, again, we talked a little about Breon Green, quarterback for them. Another great game on Friday, 290 yards, I think, 3 or 4 touchdowns. So, him and TQ Webb are, just dynamite, in the Big 12. But, also, again, you got to give major credit to P&D. You really do feel bad for the Irish because they put up a heck of a fight against 2 really good teams in Normal West and Peoria High. And unfortunately, they don't have any wins to show for it. But again, as long as once they get to that 5 wins, you put them in class 4A, wherever they're going to be in the playoffs or whatever. They're gonna be really, really dangerous. And it's kind of weird because come playoff time, you always, as a people from Central Illinois, you always have to look like, okay, who are those private schools from Chicago who are 5-4 on paper? They look like they're going to be easy wins, but then they're not. Yeah. Well, for us, Pure Notre Dame gets to be that team for us because people like Kiwani and whoever they played in the second round, I think, I can't remember, Harrisburg, I think. Obviously, Harrisburg was an 11 seed, but, everyone's going to look at P&D, all these other teams in 4A, and be like, oh, they're only, 5-4. But then, you consider they almost beat Peoria High. They almost beat Normal West, whatever. That's Irish team is going to be really, really good. So, again, keep the head up, Irish. Good things are coming your way, and they have a really good squad this year.
Yeah, and really, I thought in that game, P&D versus Peoria High, it was no luck for the Irish. They were down 40-20, like you said, John. They storm all the way back. They just didn't have the ball for the last possession of the game. And if you've ever watched Peoria High play, if you leave them 1 second, that's too much time.
Well, believe it or not, they ran a drive where they took 8-9 minutes off the clock.
My goodness.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I was reading reading the story about the game, and yeah. So I mean, obviously, again, yeah, you would think everyone like Peoria High, hey, quick strike team, they go on the field. No, they can win that drive. I obviously didn't see it in person. That drive, they can win in a variety of ways. They can win a slug it out game. Obviously, you have to win a slug it out game if you're going to play against P&D. Also, side note, I look at some of the series history between these games. These two, Peoria High and P&D, always seem to play every year a high-scoring game and always decided by a possession or two. Like, it's been that way almost every year. No matter how good Peoria High is, no matter how good P&D is, doesn't matter what the final records are, they always play each other close. I think that's really cool to see. So
I will say I'm guilty going into the only time I heard about the game was at halftime of our game, and I saw there's 40-20 at half, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of just wrote it off in my mind. I was like, okay, Peoria High beat P&D, and then when I was recapping, for the episode, I'm guilty. I didn't even know. I didn't know how good of a game that it was. I saw that, Peoria High got a late fourth quarter interception
yes.
to kind of seal the deal.
Yep, Gerald Jenkins.
But if it wasn't for that, who knows? Peoria Notre Dame could have won that game. And like you said, they always play each other close. And so I can only imagine what it was like to be at the game, watching that, because I guarantee you the energy of those two Peoria teams. We've seen a lot of not necessarily rivalry matchups, but close, across city, rivalry matchups.
Yeah.
Is what I'm referring to is early on in the year, like a lot of normal games. We had two of those, and a couple of Peoria ones as well, and that might be one of the best ones so far. That was great.
Yeah.
But moving forward, I forgot to say about mine. What am I talking about?
Yeah.
Here? My upset or surprise of the week. It was something that I said was going to be a great game last week. I had it circled. Oh. That was Normal Community and Normal West. Now I know last year Normal Community shut out Normal West. But after week 1, I was really confident that Normal West was going to really put a lot of really show Normal Community that there's more than one team in the Normal area, and that just really wasn't the case. Normal Community 48-7 in what was a dominant game. It really just shows how good Normal Community is, because Normal West is a great team. We saw it in person. They played great. Normal Community is just genuinely could be one of the best teams in the state, like top 5 team in the state.
They're an absolute train. I mean, especially when you consider you still at Kyle Beatty at quarterback. You got Marquand Gary at wide receiver. Kalen Taylor, huge game. 162 yards, I think, 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, again, and it doesn't stop there. Obviously, their defense obviously held Normal West to 7. Wildcat offense, based on what I kind of heard about that game, looks like they were kind of rolling early. And afterwards, Normal Community's defense just and shut the door. After they scored a touchdown to Malik Givens. And that's big for Community's defense, because that was their question mark coming into the season. We knew that they had playmakers coming back on offense, but they only had, maybe 3 or 4 starters returning on defense. And you hold Normal West 7 points. That shows you that, hey, our defense is just as good, if not better, than last year. And we obviously saw how good Normal Community was last year with that type of defense, and almost not the exact same offense, but the same big playmakers, the same level of talent. So, Community is going to be an absolute horse this year.
I think in a couple weeks, I could be wrong with this. I'm pretty sure it's Community that I saw in their schedule. In a couple weeks, Community plays Kankakee.
Yeah, week 4.
Week 4, that is going to be a great game.
Our Michael Savoy is going to be at that game.
Good.
Yep, he'll have the story on CSM Overtime. So, we'll have coverage of that game. That's going to be a great game. And
talk about a barn burner, man. Sheesh.
Yeah, no, well, hey, I mean, I saw what Kankakee did to Washington this past week or whatever. So, there's a chance that maybe that Case team is maybe, a team that could, win the state title. You never know. And maybe they, hand Normal Community a unkind favor. But, maybe Normal Community puts Kankakee in their place and, kind of gets one back for Central Illinois, so to say.
Normal Community's done that the past couple of years, just in a variety of sports. Last year, they were kind of the representation for Central Illinois in the state finals of the boys championship. So, and in football, they've done great as well. But continuing on, and we just mentioned Washington. What I want to talk about next is, our Week 3 CSM game that we have with the, camera game. Metamora at Washington. That's going to be, the first bit for both of those teams of conference play. Washington 0-2 to start the year. Metamora 2-0, a little bit different from last year. Not that Metamora didn't play great. Metamora was good last year, but Washington was, the team in the Mid-Illini a year ago. And now, they want to kind of get that throne back. They start off 0-2 against 2 really good teams. So I think this is one that, a lot of people should tune into.
I think Washington's going to be real hungry for a win in that game. They're 0-2, but I think they know that they're a lot better than most 0-2 teams out there, and definitely is you're talking about, wanting to reclaim that throne, especially against some conference rivals.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, Washington. We kind of saw this. I remember seeing this 2 years ago. Again, same situation. Lost their first two games. Everyone's like, "Oh no, Washington's 0-2 and everything like that." Maybe everyone else is thinking that this is going to be like year Washington's not good. Well, it's going to no, that's not the case. Washington turned out to be still really, really good that year, and it's going to be, I think, the same case this year, unless something unforeseen or something crazy happens. I mean, I was talking with them today actually at practice with Tyler Humphrey and AJ Jones, and they said that they were cool with it. They were at peace with it. They said, hey, we learned so much more in those games than we would have beating. And they were calling it the rival. They said, hey, we learned so much more in those games playing those teams than Sterling and LaSalle Peru, which is who Metamora played. And that's a valid point. I mean, Kankakee is showing they're really good this year. Maple Park Canelan is really good this year. So, and I mean. AJ Jones, he said that the Kankakee game wasn't as lopsided as it seemed. He said it was really like once we get one or two things fixed, that game would have been flipped on its head. Washington, again, is going to come out hungry. They've dominated that rivalry lately. So, again, obviously, if Washington goes 0-3, then maybe, maybe this is, Metamora's year, so to say. But, up until we know the final result on Friday night, which, by the way, our WMBD Game of the Week on CIProud.com, you'll be able to watch that live and for free. Obviously you cannot count out Washington just ever, really. So, and I'm really looking forward to what Metamora has, big ground attack, three-headed. You got Kyle Petrie and Cranford. So, I mean, really excited to see for Friday's game. I think it's going to be one of the closer Washington Metamora games that we've seen in recent years.
I think the seeding, definitely does matter, but you really just got to get into the playoffs. And I think for Washington, if they do make the playoffs, they're going to, look back at the start and be like, we're glad we had those games to learn from them to be ready for this matchup.
Yeah, I 100% agree, Wesley. And I like what you said about the Mid-Illini. Washington in past has been the team to beat. They've been the team to beat in the Mid-Illini. And now it looks like that may be a little bit more open. And John, you said the same thing about Tri-Valley and their conference earlier. They've kind of been the team that has won that conference and made the playoffs. So just goes to show that stuff is opening up here in Central Illinois. And here in week 2, we really can't put a finger on the teams that are absolutely for sure going to win their conference because stuff is changing.
Mm-hmm. It's just the foundation of the season, obviously, but kind of continuing off of that kind of leads me into the final thing I want to talk about with each of you guys is, something that what you guys consider a lock of the week. If you guys had to make a choice of what that one team or one game that you think is going to be good or one team you think is going to win, and for me, the reason I'm transitioning now is because I have Washington to improve to 1-2 on the year in this game. I think that they're at home. That Washington crowd can really get rowdy. We've been to a lot of Washington games where it has.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing a conference opponent. They have that energy. They're upset that they're 0-2. Obviously, they know they've played good teams, but that still sits with you, especially the players. They're probably a little upset. People are sleeping on them right now. They're talking about Metamora. They're talking about East Peoria. They're talking about Dunlap. They want them to talk about Washington. So I have Washington to win here in week 3.
And what goes around comes around. Give me East Peoria. They're 2-0 after 2 non-conference wins. Both of their wins over teams from Springfield, weird enough. Hard-fought win over Springfield Southeast, and then as John, you alluded to earlier, destroying Lampier 44-0. I'll keep it short and sweet. East Peoria, they're feeling good, and then they're heading into a home conference game against 0-2 Limestone. They're feeling good, and they should be. Give me East Peoria to keep it rolling. That's
I
my
like
lock.
it.
Yeah, well, hey, I also want to give a quick shout out to Limestone. They nearly beat Galesburg last week. Obviously, I don't know Galesburg isn't, obviously they're not world beaters by any means, but usually a solid program. Limestone, they had to play the game on Saturday because there was a lack of officials on Friday night, unfortunately, so they had to postpone the game till Saturday. And Galesburg won, but only 34-26. So decent showing there for Limestone. I wouldn't count out the Rockets. Again, I still do like the Raiders, and if I had to pick, obviously you can see my picks in the CSM Pick'em on CSM Overtime this week, by the way, and every week as well. I might still pick East Peoria, but I would not be surprised at all to see Limestone pick up a win, especially with a good showing, especially offensively that they had last Saturday. My lock of the week, maybe not a lock because this one's gonna be tough for me to pick, but
stand by it.
Well, okay, well, all right. Well, my big game to watch this week that maybe not people are talking about, maybe more people should be talking about, and if people are talking about it and haven't heard it, then my apologies. But Princeville and Knoxville, small school game, Lincoln Trail, Prairie Land conference game. And Princeville is 2-0. They beat Havana last week, 28-27, and they got a safety with, I think, under a minute to play in the game. They were down 27-26. They got the safety to put them up 28-27. They win that game. So thrilling win for the Princes. They're 2-0. Knoxville's on the other side of the coin, and that's kind of unforeseen for them because they're a team that is, traditionally kind of like Tri-Valley, obviously maybe not reaching the state title game, but again, a team that routinely goes deep into the playoffs, especially in Class 2A. They're 0-2 right now after losses to, I forget off the top of my head, I can look them up here real quick, but Knoxville 0-2, they're kind of like Washington. They're looking for that kind of prove-it win and everything. Knoxville lost to Macomb 22-19 last week, lost to Elmwood Brimfield 41-27 the week before. So, if Knoxville, they lose to Princeville, they're looking at an 0-3 start. And again, not saying season's over by any means, but Princeville, you're looking at this as a big opportunity because you got some momentum and you feel like you could put Knoxville in a tough place. So that's going to be a really good game to watch, I think.
I agree. Wesley, you want to round it out for us on the locks of the week?
As a Bloomington Raider, I'm going to have to swallow my pride and say Normal Community this week. They're hosting Urbana, and Urbana's, struggled as of late, and Normal Community's always a powerhouse, and it's looking this year like it's going to be the same. So that one could get ugly.
You got to keep an eye out, though. You never know. Like we talked about earlier, Notre Dame getting upset by Northern
Our
Illinois.
Joey Wright, Urbana Tigers alum, would probably have something to say about that. So I don't know. Maybe Joey will give him a pregame speech and fire up the Tigers. But I would say that one's probably about as close. That one is the lockiest of the locks, if that makes sense.
I mean, if Urbana could pull that off, I'd love to have some trash to talk about. Normal Community friends. It's not often that I have stuff I can say to them about sports, but.
Well, hey, that's what the In the Clutch podcast is here for. And hey, by the way, I wanted to give a quick shout out. I forgot to do it at the start of the episode. I was in the Jimmy John's in East Peoria tonight. I was wearing my Clutch shirt, just came back from Washington's practice, and the kind lady at the cashier register obviously saw it. I was wondering, I was thinking, okay, maybe people probably know what Clutch is or whatever and stuff. And she asked me what game we're doing this week. I'm like, we're doing Metamora, Washington. And then she was talking to me. She's like, oh yeah, I was watching your guys' podcast last week, and I was like, what? I'm about to go record it tonight or whatever. So shout out to I obviously don't know her name, but the nice cashier later at Jimmy John's in East Peoria for being a big fan, and shout out to everyone else that's watching as well. We're glad you're with us here on In the Clutch podcast. Also, by the way, now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so now you can take us with us on the go. You don't have to be on YouTube. You don't have to look at us even. You can just put us on in the car. I know I'm obviously kind of hard to look at sometimes, especially from the side angle. Maybe not getting the best side of me, but no, it's been good and looking forward to another good week. I don't know if you mentioned it, by the way, real quick. Small school game of the week, our small town throwdown, Eureka at DMAC. So we're gonna be thrilled to be at DMAC for that one. So
talked about that one earlier. That's gonna be I really hope that's our first good small school throwdown game because I'm excited to see that one. Overall, guys, any final thoughts about week 2, week 3?
I don't think so. I think we wrapped it up pretty good. I mean, we could go on longer, like we always say. We always could, but I think we got to leave it here for now. So stay with us for week 3. It's going to be a good one.
Ladies and gentlemen, like you said, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Teddy Ball, Jonathan Michel joining me in here, Dalton Carmien, and Wesley Stombaugh on the call. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 2 of season 3 of In the Clutch. We'll see you guys next time.